Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Get Comfortable Using PowerPoint. I'm Linda Fitzgerald, and you are with us for an SBDC webinar. This is the Shasta-Cascade Small Business Development Center in far Northern California. The Shasta-Cascade Small Business Development Center is a nonprofit organization. We provide confidential, no-cost advisory and training services to small businesses. We're sponsored by the SBA, the California Governor's Office of Business, and the Small Business Administration. And here are a number of our consultants. Today's topic is PowerPoint, but we have a number of consultants. We all specialize in different areas. So depending on the need of your business, we're creating webinars for you, or we have advisors you can meet with to talk specifically about how we can support you and your business. Our disclaimer. The information provided in this webinar and any supplementary materials provided to registrants are intended for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute professional, financial, or legal advice. No registrant should act or fail to act on the basis of any material contained in this webinar without obtaining proper financial, legal, and other professional advice specific to their situation. The Northern California Small Business Development Center and its host, the HSU Sponsored Programs Foundation, specifically disclaims any liability, loss, or risk, personal or otherwise, which is incurred as a consequence, directly or indirectly, of the use and application of any of the information presented in this webinar. I'm Linda Fitzgerald, your presenter. I'm a business coach, a speaker, and a trainer. I have worked in the corporate world, in the private sector, and I have my own business as well. So I know what it feels like to be a business owner. And I also work in a nonprofit. So I've seen all the different areas, and you know what? I use PowerPoint in all of them. Here's our agenda for this session. We're going to talk about the menus and the layout. As we mentioned earlier, this is for people just getting started in PowerPoint. You're going to learn how to organize and design your presentation, how to add text, objects, and photos. I'm going to take you through a PowerPoint overview. We're going to walk through all the menu items and how the ribbons change when you click on a menu item. We're going to show you how to create presentations. And the key thing with the presentation is you want to educate people and you really want to engage them. The presentation skills are important, so you're going to want to know the 3 must-have items to include in order to engage your audience. And this is really key, the 5 mistakes most presenters make. I want to share them with you so that you avoid them. So now I'm going to switch my screen. So I'm going to stop sharing and share my other screen with you. So here I am in PowerPoint. I just have a basic presentation open. I created some real simple slides. Notice the background is white. We want to keep this really basic to get started. Let's talk about the layout of this screen. So we're in PowerPoint. Over up here in the upper corner is quick access. These are some things that you can do. You can even customize buttons to put up in the upper left-hand corner so you have quick access to them. We have the slides down the left side. There are a number of slides here. You can see in the bottom corner, I have 29 slides. And right now, the bar around the top one is showing slide 1 of 29. And the slide that has the bar around it is the one that we're seeing in the middle of the screen. The menu are the words across the top. And right below that is what's called the ribbon. The ribbon changes depending on which item you've selected in the menu. So let's go over to File. This one's a little different. It actually jumps you to a different screen where you can save the file or open a new one. Home is what we're in right now. There's an underline there so you know which menu item selected. And at home, we have different options here. We have undo and redo. When you hover your mouse over an item, you're going to get a tooltip that explains that item. And each of these are in groups, and below the group is a name. So these are your clipboard items. When there are more items that won't fit in the quick, easy access on the ribbon, there's this little corner arrow that's going to let you click on it and bring you more options that fall into that area. Right here are different options about the slides themselves. You can add a new slide, you can check your layout. This is information about the font. The paragraph is how the text is laid out. Again, you can put your mouse right over it and learn what that little image is representing. We have some quick drawing features here. There's also a draw menu with a lot more detail, but they give you some basics here. And here's editing. So that's your home ribbon. When I click home in the menu, now when I click on insert in the menu, new items show up. We can insert a new slide, insert a table, images. We have different options here. You can go to pictures, illustrations. I'm going to take you through each of these menus, and then in a little bit we'll do some examples. And there are quite a few items you're going to see here that are a bit beyond our intro to PowerPoint class. So know that the beauty of learning software nowadays is good old YouTube. You can go to YouTube and search on any of these headings and find short videos, or if you want, longer videos to give you explanations. So for this one that I like to use is the shapes option. So let me go, actually, hold on, I'm going to hold off on that for just a second, but that's really fun. I use that a lot. So let's work our way down here. I want to make sure I get through everything I mentioned on my slide because I don't want to miss anything for you. The title bar is up here, and that's where your presentation is. The slide area is right here. Help is right here, and that's where you can do help, and searches are up here. The notes section, this is going to be a little challenging for me because right now I have my Zoom in the way, but the notes section is below, down right below where it says slides. There's the ability to share the notes that are on each slide. Each slide can have notes written on them below for the presenter that when you're in slideshow mode, the audience can't see. And then Zoom option is over here. So when I click on the slide on the left, it's going to move the information over to the right. I just talked a little bit about that home option, the home menu item. So let's go to the insert menu item. If I want to insert a table, here's the table option. I can click on it and it asks me, how do I want my table to be? How many rows by how many columns? And I choose what I want. And just by clicking right here, it automatically enters it in for me. It gives me a different color header. I can change the customization of that. You can see this option up here. I can use different sorts of borders. I can change the color. And I can go back to insert again. And other things, we can insert shapes. I use this a lot. I'll put something on the screen, maybe a graphic or a map. I frequently use this for maps. And I want to highlight something. So I will choose the arrow. And maybe I have a map on the right side and I'll point an arrow and I draw the arrow. It chooses a color that's part of the color scheme with the template. This one doesn't have much to it. It's pretty basic with the white background. And right now when I type, it fills in the information right in the arrow just from selecting it. So let's go back again to the draw menu, or I'm sorry, the insert menu. There are a lot of different things we can add. Text boxes are frequently done. So let's say that we want to write something in here. This is a text box there, but we want to do a different one. Oops, it recognizes I'm in a text box. I'm going to delete my table. To do that, I click on it once. Then I want to go to the edge where I have that four-headed arrow there and hit my delete button. And that's going to make it go away. So now I want to insert that text box. Click on the tool, and then it's giving me an insertion point, and I drag to where I want the text box to be. And then it's ready for me to type. I can go in here and I can change the font. Here's all my font information. I can make it a little larger. I can make it smaller. I can customize it with the exact size font I want. 72 is 1 inch. So that's a good guide for people to know how big that is. Now, 1 inch, imagine this were an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. Of course, it depends on how you choose to print it, if you're enlarging it or not. For most of the font sizes that I use in a presentation, I stay at around 30 or so. The headers will be larger, but I want to make sure that when I either print this out or present it, it's going to be large enough for people to see. On a regular Word document, often people use 12 and 14 point font. That is just too small. Now here, if you're using other Microsoft Office products, they behave the same way. You have options for highlighting, you have options for font color. To look at the color here, the color that's underneath the A is the color I'm going to get. Notice I have text highlighted already. That's the color I'm going to get if I click right on the A. And then when I click away, you can see that color has changed. Now, if I go here again, and I want a different color text, I'm choosing the drop down on the right of the A. And that gives me other color choices. I can choose from the palette that's here. I can choose these colors. I can go to an eyedropper, which means I pull a color off something else and use that color. Or I can go to more colors, which gives me many colors in the color wheel and an option there. I am losing my mouse. Let's see if I can get it back. All right. So now, what else do we want to see on this enter? Let's see. Looking across the top, word art. Word art gives you different formatting. So you might have a special heading, something that wants to stand out, and it will give it a little more flash, a little more design to what you're looking at. So now we have the drawing menu. In the drawing menu, you can choose different types of tools, and it's basically a pencil like you're drawing on here, or a pen or a highlighter. Design. This is the layout of your presentation. Right now, see how the upper left option has a border around it? That is what it's using. That's the default. It shows it's a white background, and it shows the color schemes that are offered for if you were to add objects. Just like when I added that arrow, it shows the blue. And there are other ones that I can choose from. If I choose these other options, a lot changes in the presentation. I encourage people that when you change your presentation template, this is the template, do it early in the process. Because some of these templates have images, like for this one, notice in the upper right-hand corner, that rectangle. You would want to know that's going to be in your presentation before you do a lot of work on it to make sure there isn't an image that's getting hidden by it. So if you want to change that, do that early in your presentation. And I see we have some notes in the chat. David, if there's anything in the chat that needs to be read to me, if you could let me know, that would be great.
Sure. The only one I see at the moment is we're being asked, I have PowerPoint 2013. Do you recommend that I upgrade to a newer version?
The older versions of PowerPoint allowed you to buy it and own it for life. The newer versions of PowerPoint are things that you buy and they have a recurring payment. So when you own the older version, you're fine. It'll run as long as you have a computer that will run that, you're set. But if you were to buy PowerPoint nowadays, in most situations, it's an annual subscription and you'd be paying for it every year and you'll be upgrading and getting the latest and greatest. Every time there's a new version of PowerPoint, there are new features. For instance, I did this presentation last year and I had to recreate my templates for this year because things change in the menu. You'll notice that I'm showing you things that you're not going to see in the 2013 version, but it really depends on how are you going to use it. Are you using it for your business And are you missing out on newer features? If you're just creating really basic presentations, you're probably going to be fine with that. But if you're trying to tap into some of the new things, you'll need to upgrade. Great question. And there are many different versions of PowerPoint. People might be seeing things on my screen and say, wow, I don't have that. That's just because every year, pretty much there's an upgrade and there are new features added. Transitions. Transitions are how you move from one slide to the next. Oh, let me stick with my program over here. I'm getting off track. I'm going through, all right, we talked about drawing. And the design is what we just went through. And notice, since I applied that design template, some things have changed. My background's no longer white. I have that wooden border across the bottom. If I use a different template, a lot of things change with it. And as long as you type in the standard squares, rectangles that show up holding items like headers, or I'm sorry, headings and text, the template will handle that for you. Transitions are applied to slides, one per slide. And when you click on a transition, it shows you what it's going to do. Some of them slide up, they can wipe to the side. I'm going to mention transitions again a little bit later. When transitions first came out for PowerPoint, you would attend an event, see a presentation, and people would use different transitions for every single slide. It became very distracting because some of the transitions, like look at this one, some of them get kind of complicated. These ones aren't too complicated, but they can get complicated. I have some I'll show you a little bit later. So don't overuse the transitions. Animations. Animations are actions that happen within a slide. So let me go here to the animations menu. There are some animations on this slide already. And let's see if I can, I'm going to have to move my bar. There we go. I have to move my bar up so I can get to my animations for you. Here we go. So with these animations, I'm going to click preview. I've already set up some animations on here. I'm going to click the preview button and it shows you what the animations are going to do. This is really helpful if you have a list of items. And in a presentation, if you put a list of 4 up immediately, your audience is reading all 4, even though you may only be talking about the top one. So in order to keep your audience on track with your conversation, let one topic display at a time, speak about that topic, click your mouse button and let the next one show up. Slideshow. The slideshow is changing this to a presentation. Right now, you're able to see everything on the side. When I present for an audience, I don't let them see this. This is how I'm creating my presentation. This is my working mode. But the slideshow is this right here. The image is trying to look like the old projector screen that gets pulled down from the ceiling. I'm not going to click it right now because it'll actually stop my screen sharing. But by doing that, if I clicked on it, the slideshow would take over the entire screen and people would no longer see my menu items across the top, the slides on the left. And what I would be able to do is use my arrow keys to arrow left and right in order to see the next slide. Now I want you to see this notes. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. Right here, when I click on notes, it's going to display an area down here where I can type notes to myself. When I'm in slideshow mode, I can have the slideshow showing on an external screen, and then I can have my notes on my laptop. And when I set it up in slideshow view, on my laptop will show the next slide coming up, along with the current slide being displayed. The current slide shows the notes underneath. So everyone in the audience would be looking at the projector or the Zoom presentation or whatever monitor I'm sharing with them, which is just showing the main slide. And I am able to see my own notes and see the next slide that's coming in order to prepare. So that's why this note area is really nice. And there's an opportunity to print those notes. You can print your presentation out and have it print with one slide on the top of each page and the notes on the bottom. Not a bad idea to have a hard copy backup when you're presenting, just in case you ever have an issue with the presentation, you have that hard copy backup with you. I've had times where I've gone to a presentation and they don't have the ability for my laptop to hook up to the monitor. So I'm not able to look at my notes. I'm not able to look at the next slide that's coming up. I give them the presentation, they put it on their computer, they put it in slideshow mode, and then I have been so relieved to have my hard copy backup to use as my notes. There's the ability to record a presentation. You can kind of do a dry run of your presentation. You can start from the beginning to the end, and you can record the whole thing and learn how many minutes you're spending on each slide. At the end, see what your total time is, because often when we give presentations, someone will say to us, you have 15 minutes or you have 40 minutes. And you want to understand how much time you're spending on each slide. And if you're going way over time, because what can be really unfortunate is having important slides at the end and you don't get to them. When I present for groups, what I often do is I have what I consider bonus slides at the end of the presentation. If I have an audience that's not very interactive and we're going through the material quicker than expected, I have slides to keep going and have more to talk about. They won't be my most important topics. There'll be additional bonus information for them. And oftentimes when I end a presentation, I won't end exactly on that thank you or ending slide, because I may have had some really great interaction from the audience, and that may have slowed us down a little bit. But it was really important to address their questions and to give time for interaction. Because presenting is not just about PowerPoint. Presenting is about engaging the people that are watching your presentation. We're going to talk more about that in a little bit. So let's get back over here to our slides. Review. You can go to the review section. That's where your spell checker is. That is very important. Please run your spell checker. I know often the spelling errors will show up with that red underline, but do read your presentation again. There are certain things that won't get noticed. You might have the same word twice, or you may have the wrong word. So when you're fresh, before you feel the pressure of the time when the presentation is just about to be done, the day before, just read through it slowly. Make sure it says what you want it to say. The view menu. There's different ways you can look at your presentation. Right now, you can see there's a border around the word normal. That's the view we're in right now. That's where I operate just about all the time. The outline view is going to show your slides on the left. Slide sorter. This can be really helpful if you aren't sure the order you want to present information. And in fact, you can reduce the size here and see a lot more slides on your screen, and you can move them around. Notes page. This is where you have your slide on the top and whatever text you want on the bottom. This is really helpful for the printouts. I often do that, like I said. Then there's Slide Master. There's handouts that you can create. Those are available to you in, oops, get back here. When you print, that's what's really helpful. It will create, gotta get out of this. Okay, close Slide Master view. There we go, get out of that. When you go to print presentations, it gives you a lot of different options. Let me take you there for a second. You can print the entire slide, one per page. You can choose a range of slides. This is showing full slide per page. But look at these other options. One of my favorites when I'm creating handouts for an audience is 3 slides per page. And then next to each slide, it has about 5 or 6 lines where they can take notes. That is really helpful to give your audience, because otherwise you don't necessarily need them scrambling down all this information if you're willing to share the presentation with them, but give them an organized way to keep track of the information from you. Now let's go back to our view again, and let's get back to normal. So I'm going to progress through, and I want to pause for a moment. David, do we have any questions? I know I've covered a lot of material, and is there anything specific I can look at for anyone?
I don't see anything in the chat at the moment. If anybody has any questions, go ahead, feel free to type them in the chat, and we'll get to them.
Now we are here at help. Let me click at help in the menu. You can contact support, you can leave feedback, go to training. I also consider help the search feature up here. When you're trying to do something, type it in the search field and it will give you a lot of helpful information for pointing you to where you need to be. Sometimes it can get a little frustrating because if you don't search on the correct word, it can be hard to find it. When it comes to PowerPoint right now, everything that we've gone through, we're on slide 13, everything we've gone through, I've given you a lot of things to get you started. All these words in the menu, you can type those words along with the word PowerPoint into YouTube and get mini videos to help you through so many of these items. For instance, animation has changed a lot. A couple days ago when I was preparing for this training, I went to YouTube and searched for PowerPoint animation. And I found a lot of different videos to choose from. And there's a lot of different lengths. Sometimes there'll be a 20-minute video and sometimes there's a 2-minute video. You just check them out and they will give you just enough to get you comfortable so you can come in here and experiment. I encourage you, when this presentation is over, to schedule some time for yourself to create something in PowerPoint and play with it. It's more fun to learn on something when you have time and you can experiment than it is when you know the presentation's due tomorrow and you're trying to learn it with a lot of stress. So I encourage you to play with it now and use examples. You can find PowerPoint presentations. You can search for different samples of PowerPoint presentations and look at those. I don't recommend that you download them and run them because there can be active files in those that I would hate for you to get infected in some way on your computer. So you can look at images of them, but I would not recommend downloading them and running them. But you can look at great presentations, and nowadays with Zoom, a lot of people are sharing presentations, and you can be inspired and see what they do. So now I want to switch a little bit and talk more about presenting.
Before we do, can
yes,
I bring up one question we have?
Of course.
Can you repeat the font point size that's easy to read on screen and for print?
Sure. Let me go back. Let's go up here more because I want you to look at a page that has more text on it. So right now, this font, and I'm going to switch over here. Let's go to the home menu. When I click on a font or I click on text, for instance, here, it's flashing right there. And up here, I can see what that font size is. When I look at this on my presentation the way it is, it's pretty small. 18 is pretty small. I usually don't use something like that small in a presentation. So let me show you what it's going to look like if I make it larger. So I'm going to highlight it first. It brings up all sorts of menus for me to help it make it easier for me. So here I'm going to choose this. And when I just put my mouse over it, you can see how large it's going to be. I click on it. So that particular font is 44. It went from 18 to 44. It often depends on what you're displaying in your presentation. And a little bit later, I have some sample slides to show you. What people don't like seeing in PowerPoint is a huge paragraph of text. And people can make the font small and they can get a lot of information up there. But what happens when you're presenting and you have a lot of text on your screen and it's a small font, they stop listening to you and they read the entire slide. Even if you're reading the slide, and I do not recommend you do that. If you're reading the slide, they'll actually read it because they can read it faster than you can read it out loud. So they aren't with you at that point. And when you're presenting, you want to keep your audience with you. But let me jump back to you specifically talking about the font size. When you use a template, just like I chose this template, it does a lot of the font sizes for me. I can then override them. So my recommendation is, see this heading up here? Notice the heading is 66 font. And as I switch to some of the others, this is also a title slide. So this is the first slide of a presentation. When I go into the rest of my slides, their format looks similar. And when I go to the heading of the slide and I click on it, the heading is 32 font, 32 point, and the body is 20. So it's standard to have the heading be larger than the body of the presentation. But you want to be consistent going throughout. So as I transition from this slide to this slide, notice the word insert and the word home are in the exact same place, the exact same font style, and the exact same font size. That's consistent and easier for the viewer to watch as we transition from one to the other. What is uncomfortable for the viewer is if we switch. I want to go over here and make this one look different. I'm going to double click on that word. By double clicking, it highlighted the whole word. And I'm going to make this font, we'll go with larger. Now, when I transition between the two slides, it doesn't have the same structure and it kind of jumps out more. If I'm trying to draw attention to it, that's effective. But normally you want to have a consistent flow to your presentation. So being consistent with your fonts. When it comes to font size, there really is no rule. I like to encourage people to use the design templates to get you started. I'm going to go back to the design. And these different templates are going to apply whatever the format is for that template. So font size, just don't go too small. And in a little bit, you're going to see some examples of what to do and what not to do. For your presentation, think about what general layout you want for it. When you're going to create a presentation, I start on a piece of paper. I capture what are the main things I want to talk about and perhaps what order do I want to talk about them. And I don't do very much on that piece of paper. That is just getting me started. So then my next step is I go from the piece of paper and I switch right over to PowerPoint. For my company, I use the same template all the time because the template has my logo in the bottom right corner. It has the same colors I like to use. When people work with me and do different training sessions with me, they always see a structured template. And you'll notice that at the end, when I switch back to the SBDC template, which is what we started with, you'll see that with SBDC, we always use the same template. So I like to apply the template first, and then I'll start getting my ideas out slide by slide. And I'll create the header for each slide. So I might go to the first slide, and often for meetings that I do, one of the first slides is the agenda. With adult learning theory, adult audiences want to know what's coming. They don't want you to surprise them. Please tell them in the beginning, what are we going to cover today? And here you have this nice little icon on the left. As we type things, you're going to see that icon, the little triangle icon for each one. So for an agenda, I might have introductions, and then I'll cover all the topics. And then at the end of my presentations, the only way I can get that little triangle to show up is to put a space. So I'm hitting space. And at the end, I like to ask for feedback. When people join me for a presentation, I show up with what I prepared. And I want interaction from the audience. Interaction from the audience is going to allow me to make sure that I'm delivering content they want. Notice we're doing it right now. David's sharing information from the chat. so that this presentation is not only what I brought for you, but it's also what you are asking for. And I love to honor the people that show up live. A lot of people nowadays will sign up for a webinar and say, oh, I'll watch the recording. I can watch it on YouTube at 1.5 speed and watch it real quick. That's true. But I like to show up for live webinars because I get to ask my questions, and my questions are the ones that are going to be addressed and saved. And just so you know, we do record this and you will get access to watch the replay. So do interact with people during your presentations. That is one of the key elements of an engaging presentation. Get people involved. You might want to do a poll. Zoom has one of the newer things in Zoom in the last 2 years is having polls where the audience gets involved. You can ask questions here. You can have trivia. You can post a question and invite people to, if you're running your presentation over Zoom, invite people to enter their guesses in the chat. First person to enter the right question wins. To get them engaged. When they participate is when it's not just a one-sided conversation. And like I said before, feedback, I want feedback at the end. Feedback from my audiences is, to me, it's a superpower. I love it when people give me feedback, even when it's uncomfortable feedback. I'll say to them, in this situation, for instance, if you have feedback for me and you're not comfortable sharing it with me, give it to David. He's my boss. He'll give it to me. That way I get it anonymously. Or if you're comfortable telling me directly, I'd love to hear it, because then I can have a two-way conversation with you and ask a follow-up question that I wouldn't be able to do if you just shared it with David. Getting that kind of connection with your customers, with your clients, with your patients, having their feedback change your future presentations really makes an impact on you as a presenter, and it values their feedback. So make sure you are setting up an agenda for people when you do a presentation, and you're gathering feedback in some form. When I do in-person trainings, I hand out a very low-tech feedback form. It's a 3x5 card. I hand that out to all the people involved in the beginning, and I let them know that is my feedback card. I would love any comments that they could give to me to, celebrate something I shared, or to let me know if there's an area I could do better, something that wasn't covered, or maybe a question they weren't comfortable asking in the group. They can put the question on the card and let me know how to contact them. And that way they stay engaged with me. Not everyone in your audience is going to be comfortable asking a question. It doesn't mean they won't have the question. They won't be comfortable asking. So give them a method of how to reach you. Don't wait till the end to share your email of how they can reach you. Do that at the beginning. Or put something in the chat. If you're doing a presentation over Zoom, they can send a message directly to you, but they might not know they can do that. So let them know. Let people know how they can reach you, because you do not want to miss out on getting questions from people. David, I think we have someone's mic on other than my own.
Yeah, that's mine.
Oh, okay. Just want to be sure. Just want to make sure there wasn't more than us.
Yeah. Now, in the spirit of questions and interaction, we do have one more for you.
Oh, great.
How do you add music to accompany your presentation?
That is a bit beyond what we cover in intro. It's actually audio. Let me see if I can, let's see here, slideshow. I think it might be here. Here we go. You would use this audio button, and there are different sounds. You can trigger a song. You can paste the image here, and then it can be attached to the sound. And you can then play that. And then you can set that up as part of your animations if you want to. You might be on a certain slide, and when something happens, you click the mouse and shattered glass. There's the sound of shattered glass, and it's, you're breaking through something. So it may be music. There's other audios too, but this is how you would do that. You would add it in right there. And that's a great one where you can go to YouTube and type in PowerPoint adding audio or adding music clips, and they'll show you a number of different ways that you can do that. I've done that. It's really fun. It's a great surprise for your audience too. But you do want to be aware of copyright with various audios that you're playing so that you don't get yourself in trouble. Do we have other questions, David?
Not at the moment.
Okay. So I've changed my, now look up here. Notice when I changed my template, it has a couple header slides, the intro slides that look very different format. And then the standard new slide format looks like this. But let's go here. I'm going to choose insert, and I want to insert a new slide. I want you to see all the different types of slide formats you can choose from. And they all fall within this sort of layout, this design scheme. This is the intro one that we showed. This is what I'm using right now. This can be really helpful if you want to have some white text on the left. Let's see what happens when I apply that here. Notice it's a new slide. You get white text on the left and your other text on the right. It gives a little variety to your presentation. And by choosing these options down here, see this one with 3, if you're going to have 3 lists, let PowerPoint create those text boxes for you. It's going to make sure they're aligned properly. It has the nice heading for you. You don't have to create them yourself. Certainly you can add a text box, but you don't want to worry about the alignment. The same thing's true with this here. If I choose this one, I have 2 evenly sized boxes, and within here, I have options of what I want to insert: a table, a chart, smart art. Smart art is really cool. These different items that you can build upon and enter your own text into and describe them. Great visuals. Now, using these sort of things is when people will know you're on a newer version. This sort of tool is not going to be available on the 2013 version of PowerPoint. But over here, we look at all these different options. They make it easy for you. 3D models. There's so many options you can have a lot of fun with. Add pictures, stock images, insert a video, or insert an icon. Those are the standard things you can insert, but you can just start typing a list right here if you want to. You can add other things there as well. Sometimes I'll keep that box with nothing in it, and I'll keep it just because it's a frame and I'm taking my own picture and putting it on it. And by keeping that as a frame, it helps me center it or align it nicely next to the object on its left. So let me move us forward. Transitions we've talked about. We've got the animations. All right, here we're starting to talk about some content of things to avoid. This is an example of one of those slides I shared with you. It has a couple things going on. It has what the presenter thought was a really cool picture, and they're kind of losing the value of the picture because the Ferrari is hidden behind all this text. And when people present this, your audience is saying, I don't know what to look at. Do I look at the text? Do I look at the image? It's too much. It's too much text on the slide, and it's too much picture. So ideally, you want to make the picture be an accent in the slide. Let that be something smaller and have the text be smaller paragraphs, ideally short phrases. Once you put up an image like this, people are not listening to you, they're reading your slide. Here's another example of a slide you do not want to create. A really bad PowerPoint presentation. They have the colors happening, they have the shadowing happening. There's just too much here. the people that are looking at it are saying, oh my goodness, what are we talking about? I'm so distracted by all the information that you have. Now I want to point out on the right side here, it's kind of like an elevator over here. I can take this and take it up to whatever slide I want, down to whatever slide I want. Or I have my arrows to take me up one slide at a time. And as you're noticing, these were different slides. That's a slide, and then this is a slide. I could have set that as a build to have the second picture show up as an animation, so it shows up in the next image, but I just created it as a different slide. And at the bottom, I talk about slide consistency. I mentioned it a little bit earlier. Lacking slide consistency is one of the things we want to avoid. The audience wants to enjoy your presentation and not notice jarring differences. Here's another example of what I see when people make a mistake. So we start here with view, and then this option here, instead of having the word help left aligned like it is right there, they'll center align it. And they just created each slide separately. They weren't really paying attention. But then as we're viewing the presentation, we move from this one to this one. It's an inconsistent format. And it just looks like a typo. It looks like they didn't mean for that to happen. So instead, plan for consistency as you work your way through your presentation. Avoid the overuse of transitions. I talked about this earlier, and I created an example for you. So I'm going to take this, and we'll see if it will. David, it might jump me out of SlideShare, but I'm going to see what will happen here. David, can you still see the right screen?
Yeah, we can.
Looks like
Looks
it worked.
good.
Perfect. So here's where people get a little excited about transitions. And all of a sudden, you kind of get a little dizzy with all the different transitions. Now they're cool, but it's nice if you use a similar transition as you work your way through. And here is another thing you want to avoid. Avoid all the different font styles. It is distracting. Look at that right there. It is distracting. There's so many different fonts going on. And another presentation thing that you can avoid is when you have a lot of text up there, don't read it. They are reading it. You might use it as your own tool for your presentation and help you walk through things, but don't necessarily read directly from your slides. When I present with PowerPoint, I don't have a lot of notes. I already know my information. I use PowerPoint as my notes. So let me finish my thought. I'm getting ahead of myself. Another tip here, learn from the presenter. Stick with the slide you're on. Here we go. So it's distracting with all these fonts. I mentioned earlier the importance of consistency. So now I'm going to hit the exit. Right now I'm in screen view. I'm going to hit the exit button, and it brought me back to the regular presentation mode. So I am going to take you now behind the scenes to creating a presentation, because using PowerPoint is only part of it, doing things. But what do you do when you create your presentation? I've given you a few tips on this already, and I just want to show you what I did. So when I'm creating an introductory class like this, I want to start with the basics. So I created this presentation, and it is the second presentation because the first one was the SBDC one. By the time I take you in here, a few minutes into the webinar, I want to show you what we're going to do. So for me, I create for myself the presentation format, slide by slide, is going to be how I'm going to talk with you. I do not have a bunch of side notes. I already know how to use PowerPoint. These are all tips to myself. I am not using the notes underneath the slide for this. When you're presenting to an audience and you know the topic, you know what you want to present, on each slide, Let the contents of the slide be your tap on the shoulder of what you're going to talk about. And let that progress you through and make sure your presentation makes sense logically. It wouldn't have made sense for me to start off with the review button or the slideshow button if I didn't teach you some basics of how to use it first. So make sure your presentation is building on the knowledge and getting the viewer more comfortable with information. And you want to engage that person. Ask for questions throughout the presentation. I shouldn't say throughout. Ask for questions at key points in the presentation. What I like about the setup with Zoom is David is here. He has access to the chat and he can interrupt me whenever it's appropriate to address a question. In this sort of presentation, if I'm on the slide that is talking about the homepage right here, and David sees a question about the homepage, this is a great time for him to interrupt me and ask the question. I would prefer him to do that and ask on this slide than wait until we're 4 slides ahead and someone says, hey, can you go back to that home slide? I'd rather have the question here. But there are situations in a presentation when you have a large audience and you don't want to be fielding questions constantly. The reason for that is you know you have a time limit. For instance, you're giving a 20-minute presentation and you don't even know if you'll have question time. So in that case, at the beginning, let people know what you expect in their engagement. Their engagement could be, you're going to ask some questions and say, hey, raise your hand if you've experienced this, to get some interaction from them. If you are going to have questions and answers at the end, let them know that you're going to leave time for that. Some presenters, especially in the business environment, really want the people to connect with them, and they'll give them a special instruction on how to give their questions. Send them to me in this format, or it's a one-way conversation. Maybe they're recording a presentation. It's going to be delivered automated, like when someone watches a Zoom video, like if you watch this Zoom video after it's been recorded. You want to make sure in that video, at the recording at the end, let people know how to get in touch with your company, because they may be watching this months later and you want to know that that client wants to reach out to you. So you, as you're creating your presentation, create a logical layout. Be aware of the time that you're taking from people. Images. When you use images, there is a lot of art out there that you can get. And you can do Google searches and pick up almost anything. Be very careful what you're using. A lot of images have copyright and you don't want to get in trouble by using that. I love the ability to take pictures myself. Our phones are amazing cameras these days, to take pictures myself and put them in my presentation. Or use pictures from Microsoft that I know I'm allowed to use, or buy them from something online like Shutterstock so that I own the rights to use that image. Particularly nice for pictures that have people in them. I'd rather make sure I know I'm using an image that I have approval to use. If I'm using a picture with people that I know, do I have their permission? And in businesses, I encourage people to get their written permission. There's a lot of forms you can find for that. Ask a photographer, or you can find them online to make sure you have permission to use people's photos. Sometimes it's a casual work environment, it's your coworkers, and if that's the case, please don't surprise them by a picture on the screen. Get their permission first, and then they'll look at it and they'll be pleased that you chose a picture of them. Using different sorts of art is going to add interest. Years ago, everything used to be clip art, and that got kind of boring. And now you'll see a variety when you look at a presentation. You'll see a funny clip art, and you'll see a really great photograph, and you'll see a landscape photograph. And think about images that make sense with what you're presenting. It doesn't make sense to have a sunrise photo when you're not talking about anything that even aligns with, just because you think it's a great photo. No, stick with the content and make sure it's relevant. You want to keep your audience, you want to keep them aligned with your presentation. Do we have any questions on presentations and creating presentations? Because that's something we really want to make sure you're comfortable with as well.
Not at the moment. We do have one. Spring is asking that she says, we would love to get your recommendation on which template style might go with which industry in terms of branding. I did send a link in the chat. I did put a link to Zach Barton's presentation on branding and style guides and color and design. But I don't know if you have any insight into templates available on PowerPoint and how that might relate to industries.
That is a great question. And what I did for my company's standard design template is I started with one of these. And notice there's a lot to choose from with this drop-down arrow. But I noticed a few years ago, there were a lot of companies that were using these right out of the design templates, not editing them at all. And then there would be certain ones, I personally like the ones with the dark blue background. And I would go to another company and I'm like, oh, they use the exact same template. So what I encourage people to do is start with a template and then do some customizing to make that template your own. That way, when other people see it, they're not going to see something that looks exactly like what someone else has done. Now, for me, one of the differences is at the bottom of the logo, I go into the slide master. When you're in the slide master, it actually gives you the ability to enter something on every single slide in the presentation. I take my logo and I put it on the bottom right corner of every slide. There's a couple exceptions. If I have a big graph taking up the whole slide and I need that real estate, then in that case, I won't have the logo on the bottom. But look at what you like. What is your company colors? That's a great start. You want it to align with your logo. And if you don't have a logo, then I would really suggest you start there and go to Zach's branding slide. One of the first things I did when I started my company 6 years ago was create my logo. I started with some colors I liked and shapes I liked. And then I worked with a designer to make it look professional, because the first version I came out with, it was very homemade, and I used it for about 1.5 years. And then I thought, you know what, it was time to do some professional business cards. And at that point, it was time to invest in my company by paying someone to help me with the logo. And there are lots of ways to do that these days. And once I had that professional logo and I had 3 different colors in it, that helped me determine what my slide design was going to be. Obviously, it's going to be those 3 colors. And then I added certain things to it to customize the initial design template and make it my own. I took that and then I saved it and I called it my company name template. And every once in a while, I'll create a new slide with a little bit of a different format to it. But it gave me my own structure that doesn't look like anyone else's. And if I use it somewhere, no one says, oh my gosh, I saw that one last week, because I've done a little bit of changing on it. So hopefully that helps you figure out what you want to do. Also, when you go to print a presentation, and I love the idea of the paperless office, but I haven't found it yet. And there are times I need to print these out. If I print this presentation, this slide is going to use a lot of my dark ink. Let me show you how you can print that and save on a lot of ink. So I clicked on File, and over here I have the print option. And when you look at your options here, see the color? I am going to change that to, there's grayscale. Grayscale helps a lot, but these big dark ones, it's really not going to do it for me. Pure black and white. Anything that's really dark is not going to show, but the text is going to show. And notice the text is showing up. This is a little bit of a hard example because I have light text on dark backgrounds, and that's what has a challenge appearing. But when you print things out, you're going to save a lot of toner. When you print everything out, let's try the color. When you print everything out with full color, you're going to be going through a lot of toner. A way you can get around that, if you really do want the color, is Print, instead of full slides, print multiple slides per page. Then you're going to get 6 slides on a page, much smaller images of the slides. We'll use a lot less toner for you and a lot less paper. So what are other questions that you have regarding presentations? You've seen this overview right now, and now I really want to focus on what value I can bring you as one of our live attendees.
We'll give it a minute. There's nothing in the chat at the moment.
Okay. Then David, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move through this slide, and I want to start showing a finished presentation so you can see what that looks like. Let me go up a couple slides here and get us back where we were. The must-haves for an engaged presentation is interaction. Bring your audience in some way. You can do that through a question. You can do that through a poll. Your audience may be live in front of you. With COVID, a lot of our audiences have been remote. You can ask a question, get people involved in the chat. Sometimes a great question to start with us, for instance, is where are you from? And you can have people join the chat and say where they're located. Normally, we only serve Shasta and Trinity County, but with Zoom conversations, Zoom webinars, we have people all over the world join us for these presentations. So celebrate where people are from. And sometimes you have people meet their neighbors here. Oh my gosh, you're from that city, so am I. So get them interacting in some way. Answering their questions is really going to provide a lot of value. People show up to presentations because they have questions. Give them the chance to ask. Visuals. Have interesting visuals. Have current visuals. If you have a presentation you've used for years, it's time to scrub out some of the old visuals and add new interest. And then a call to action in your presentation. Have them take an action as a result of participating in your presentation. If people show up to this presentation, for instance, and they do nothing afterward, they didn't get anything out of it. They're not applying what they learned. So here's your call to action for attending this presentation. Pull out your calendar right now. Pull out your calendar and schedule for yourself 15 to 20 minutes to practice in PowerPoint. Practice something I showed you in this presentation that you didn't know yet. Maybe it's going to be how to add that audio. Pull out your calendar. I'm not kidding. Pull out your calendar right now. Write this down and schedule that time. Because by scheduling it and setting up a reminder on your phone for that appointment, you're going to prioritize getting something good done for your business. And as much as we can get distracted by what happens in our business and those things that are urgent, there are things that are still important that might be put on the back burner that we have to give attention to. And we do that by scheduling them. When I give you this call to action and you follow up on it, you are going to take the learning that I've given you and take it deeper and apply it to your business specifically. And that's what you want your clients, your customers, your patients to do. You want them to learn from you. You want them to take what they've learned from you. How can they apply it in their own life? How can they work with you to get to their next level of success? So get them involved in taking action as a result of watching your presentation. So that is important. Get that action going. And look for some interesting images. I like to choose interesting images that have a not the same thing. So if you look at my Q&A image this time in a presentation, it's going to look different than the Q&A image that I use next time. Give them some variety. If you have someone watch a presentation you did 6 months ago and watch one that you do tomorrow, I don't want them to say, oh gosh, they reused a whole bunch of slides. Switch your pictures out. The basic message might be the same, but hopefully you've learned some things in the last 6 months and you're going to provide even more value when someone attends that second time. So now I'm going to switch back to our SBDC presentation, and I want you to see how we've set those slides up. While I'm doing this, David, feel free to let me know any questions. So here we are back at the SBDC presentation. I'm going to run it full screen and get us back to the beginning. Here we are. This is how we started the presentation. This is what you were seeing. And now I am going to take us out of that full screen mode and let you see behind the scenes. What does this look like? Notice the images. It's a current image. It is not an image that I see many places. But when I see the SBDC template, no matter which presenter is presenting, there's consistency. We all are using the same slide format and often the same intro and the same standard slides as we go through. Our second slide, this shows our office, and it's the same information. We have periodically we'll update who the people are in this slide, but we want you to know that there are over 40 people supporting you through the SBDC that we support, Shasta and Trinity counties, and we all specialize in different things. And oh, by the way, I'm Linda, right in the middle and the top, that's me. And we are here to support you on so many different topics. So right now, if you're thinking of other topics you'd love to learn about, we have an SBDC consultant who can help you. Put a note in the chat of what the other topics are that you would like to see discussed. If there's anything else that we can set up webinars for, most of our webinars are because our clients asked for them. And you're watching this webinar either live or recorded because we want those recordings to be there for you so that if you did attend live, you can watch the recording and watch it slower, pause it as you need to. Or if you miss it, your calendar just doesn't let you attend, you're still going to be able to watch that video.
We do have a question that I think I missed.
Okay.
It says, I have two slide decks that look like they are formatted the same.
Okay.
When I copy a slide from one deck and paste it to the other deck, it loses the original formatting.
Okay.
Solution, thanks.
Sure. I have two presentations open right now, so this is a great way to show you this. I'm not sure if I can keep you with me the whole time I make these changes, so I'm going to actually jump to my other presentation. Not sure if you were able to see that. Looks like you're still with me. And now this slide over here, let's say I want to copy this slide. I am going to copy it. Now I'm going to go to my other presentation. David, the screen I'm showing right now, does it show all the consultants?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so I have a slide copied from my other presentation. I'm going to click between the slides where I want it to be, and then I'm going to right click. Before I paste it, I'm going to right click and check out these options. Use destination theme. The destination is where I am right now. Keep source formatting. That's where it came from. Or I'm just pasting a picture. If I keep source formatting, let's see. Oh, that's so funny. That didn't paste the way I expected. All right, let's try this a second time. Use destination theme. Oh, that's hilarious. I thought it would have brought my theme from my other one. All right, so let me ask a question about what you're doing. When you're pasting it, have you tried pasting it the way I just did, where it's using the theme? Where when you right click, you get these options for destination theme or sourcing theme? The trick from
He says yes.
So you've tried both those different options and it's still not pasting the way you want?
Yeah, it looks that way, yeah.
Okay. What is on the slide?
You know what, I'm going to unmute
Sure.
everybody. Hang on a second.
Okay.
I'm in the wrong thing to unmute. Just a second. That way, oh, gee whiz. Come on, David. Here we go.
Because it looks like
okay.
Right here, by default, it's taking the format of, oh, I see. Yeah, it is. See the little bar right here? It is taking the format from my other slide. All right, so that
Right.
first one, when it came in, let's see
So
if
David,
I can.
you can unmute yourself if you'd like.
Thanks, David and Linda. Appreciate it.
Sure.
So I have two slide decks from the
Mhm.
company I work for that look to me exactly the same in terms of formatting.
Okay.
But when I'm trying to bring a slide over, just like I said, from one deck to the other, it loses formatting. And I believe, I haven't done it for a little while. I tried Paste Special, tried the different options, and it erased, I want to say it's like erased the background formatting template.
Huh.
Yeah.
Here's something you can check. When people have older presentations
Mhm.
were the layout of a standard piece of paper. Let me go to
Mhm.
design. When we look over here, slide size,
Mhm.
our older versions of the computer were standard size.
Mhm.
It wasn't as wide as they are right now.
Mm.
So one of the things I'm wondering is, could one of your presentations be in standard and one in wide?
I don't know the answer to that question at this point.
Okay.
It's possible. I doubt it. These presentations get used a bunch.
Okay.
And they seem pretty current and updated. So I just thought it was, I was doing something incorrectly.
Okay.
Some simple trick that I just didn't know. So I'm curious to go back and try it after watching.
Yeah. And then if for some reason you can't figure it out, reach out to David. And then David and I can talk. And then what we can do is I can see how I can help you more specifically. Because sometimes you just have to look at the actual presentation.
Sure.
But it doesn't make sense. Now, what's interesting right now is I'm having a problem pasting using the destination theme because they keep coming over with the source formatting.
Right.
So I'm trying to get this theme to show up and it's not. So sometimes when I'm having a problem like that, I'll save what I'm doing. I'll shut down PowerPoint and start it again and see if it was just a glitch.
Great.
Because another thing I would try if I were you is I would try to copy in the other direction. You're always copying from like B to A, try to copy from A to B.
Yes.
And see if you notice anything different. It's a little bit of a archaeological dig, but you'll figure it out. And if you need help, I'm happy to give you a hand.
Great. Thanks.
You're welcome. So here we are in this presentation, and this is all customized. This is an SBDC standard format that we use, and it looks really great, and other people don't use it. So it has all of our branding. It has our logos on it. These are the companies, let me jump back here. These are the companies that support us. It's very important as a nonprofit to share the companies that are investing in us and making this available to you. We want to make sure you know who they are. So within the presentation, we'll get through these added ones. And oh, by the way, if you put a slide in and you didn't mean to, all you have to do is hit the delete key. When it has the border on it like that, we just hit delete and it's gone. And then for us, we have a disclaimer slide. We like the presenter to introduce themselves. And when you're doing a presentation, it is nice from an audience if someone else can introduce you. It's kind of awkward to get up there and talk about yourself. When we do webinars and I'm hosting them, I often do the intro slides and introduce the presenter for them, and then the presenter appears. And since I'm not on video right now, let me turn my video on. Normally, when I'm not on video, I would want to have my picture here. I want people to see what I look like, see who I am. So I'll let you see that, yes, you are here and I am here live right now. So having a picture next to a presenter is nice if you're on a video screen, or actually if your camera is off and you're doing something over Zoom, it's nice for people to know who you are. I mentioned how the agenda is really important when it comes to adult learning theory. And then here I gave myself an instruction. The audience doesn't need to know this, but this is saying, hey, Linda, it's time for you to switch over to the other presentation. And here, there's a little note right here for wrap up. You can create different sections to your presentation, and that's going to help you as you need to regroup things. It just kind of keeps your ideas together. We have our questions. And any other questions we can address, David? I see we have some more in the chat.
I see some chat in the chat, but I don't see any questions.
Okie doke. Chat works. That's good. The chat's working. All right, so it is important for us to share your next steps and how we can help you in the future. This is the Shasta-Cascade SBDC. We're in Redding, California. We support Shasta and Trinity counties. We're going to talk a little bit, I'm going to talk a little bit more, and I'm going to jump back to questions. This is very important to talk about before you finish a presentation. The reason for that is not everyone stays till the very end. So bring up information and how people can reach you. Some people, this particular presentation goes an hour and a half. And sometimes people have to want to take a quick break before their next meeting, or they have to head off to a meeting. Make sure people know how to reach you. You can share it at the beginning, you can share it again at the end, but don't wait till the very end. And a thing that we do at the SBDC is we have a survey which asks for your feedback. David's going to share that with you in a few minutes in the chat. We do not wait until the end of the presentation to share it. The reason for that is a lot of people at the end are saying, okay, this is over, I need to run. With our link, what people do is it's in the chat. Click on the link, it opens a new window. So you click on that link now, and then when the presentation's over, you can go and complete the survey. We love your feedback. It's why our presentations get better time and time again. And it is also the reason that a lot of this content is created. You share with us what you would like to learn. When it comes to your companies, there are a lot of different ways you can share and connect with people. The SBDC has a number of different formats here. Look at the ways that we share with you that you can learn more from us. We have a YouTube channel, and there's a lot of content on that YouTube channel. About a year and a half ago, we made a lot of, over 30, 1 to 2 minute videos to educate our clients on topics that would give them information quickly. We know you don't have a lot of time. This can be a great place for you to spend some time when you want to invest in your business by building your own skills. Watch some of these videos, and then here's the key point. Apply what you learn. Learning is wonderful, but it's when you apply it and your business improves as a result that it makes all the difference. Now, we also have, I'm going to go to this slide early because I want you to see it. At the end, we have a thank you slide. Again, you're seeing our logo, and we're appreciating everyone that came and joined us for the presentation. I often end a presentation on this slide because there's so much information here. Our logo is still at the bottom. And next steps, we put next steps on top of this slide on purpose, because this is not the end of something for our clients. This is the beginning. You just watched a PowerPoint presentation. You have a foundation for yourself in PowerPoint right now. Now is when you take the next steps. That might be reaching out for us. As a business owner, at the end of your presentation, what action do you want them to take? How can they interact with you? What can they do? Can they send other people your way? You've established a relationship, especially if they've spent the time to sit through this presentation with you. And it's so important for you that they know how to reach you. And this is key. When they reach out to you, how are you going to respond? What is your response process? If someone sends you an email, do you respond within 48 hours? That is a great guide, because if they catch you over the weekend, you're going to be able to address it on Monday. But if people wait 4 and 5 days to hear from you, they may have by then found someone else. So do make sure that you're monitoring your business email, that if you're giving a phone call, a phone number for people, that you're replying in a reasonable time. And to me, reasonable is like 1 to 2 business days. If they don't hear from you nowadays with the internet, they can so quickly find someone else. So be responsive for your clients and your customers. David, what would you like to share as we wrap up? I know we have other presentations coming that could interest people. What would you like to share as the SBDC director?
A couple of things. We did put the link in the chat a little bit ago on the survey. David has also asked if we have a link to more advanced PowerPoint classes that have been offered in the past, and we've not done that as a center, but certainly that's something we ought to look at, Linda.
We can talk about that, but the tricky thing about advanced PowerPoint is it depends. You know, to some people, advanced PowerPoint is charts. To some people, advanced PowerPoint is video. I mean, it can go so many different ways. So I would really encourage you to go to YouTube. There's a ton of material out there on PowerPoint, and type in what piece you want to learn more about, and it's already there for you. You can tap into it today.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, in about 40 minutes, we're going to have another webinar. This one is on Google Drive, and if you're interested in attending that, I'll put a link to the registration in here as soon as I can find the link to the registration. Here it is. So it's going to be a really excellent workshop as well. Brian Ream talks about how Google Drive can help you store files and help you collaborate on documents and share information real time across the internet. And it's well worth attending if you're interested in it. I'm going to put the link in the chat right now. And there it is. God bless America. It made it. Okay.
And David, I just like to share that when it comes to watching webinars, I watch our own SBDC webinars because I'm a computer user and I tend to use the same things all the time. And I'll watch someone else use a tool and they're doing things with it that never occurred to me. So it is worth investing your time to see some of these tools and learn new ways you can use them and be more efficient in your business. And with that, David, I think we're about to wrap up. What do you think?
I think so too. Just you will be getting copies of, you will be getting a link rather to this video. And like Linda said, you have any questions, you want to reach out to us, we're here. And
thank you for, yes, thank you for joining us today, and congratulations on investing in your business by increasing your knowledge. Here at the SBDC, we are here to help you. And if you're not in our area, you can contact the SBDC in your area. In the middle of this slide, you will see americassbdc.org/find-your-SBDC. And you can find an SBDC in your location where you can meet with an advisor directly, and they can help you move your business forward. Thanks for joining us. Feel free to watch the replay, and we are so glad that you're investing in your business. Take care.
Bye.